We are all travelers. Each of us is on a journey through time and space. It's a physical journey. It's an emotional journey. It's a spiritual journey. It can be hard and heavy and filled with grief. But there is no need to travel alone. We are here together. This fellowship is a community. In this room or online, here for the first time or long-time member, this is a community that welcomes and holds and encourages all who want to center their lives in love. Renee Good, say her name, Renee Good. The woman in Minnesota, the woman an ICE agent shot and killed this week, wanted the best for her family, her neighbors, her community. She showed up at her wife's request when they heard the whistles and the car horns after they dropped their child off at school. Renee's wife, Rebecca, stood outside their car, making snarky remarks, which, by the way, are not actually illegal. They are. Snarkiness is protected by the Constitution. She used her phone to record the ICE officer who was taking video of them and their car and the car's license plate. As he came around to the driver's side, Renee Good leaned out the window and smiled at the officer, the one who shot her a few seconds later. She said, "That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you." You can see it on YouTube. I have a vivid mental picture of Renee's open, cheerful, kind face. She didn't know these were her last words. She was de-escalating instinctively, it seemed to me, trying to put the ICE agent at his ease. I'm reminded of the words of Alice Walker. We are not the first to suffer, rebel, fight, love, and die. The grace with which we embrace life, in spite of the pain, the sorrows, is always a measure of what has gone before. The grace with which we embrace life. Renee Good. Weeks ago, when I was thinking about this month's theme of resistance and choosing a sermon topic, I thought of the Liberian child advocate Jimmie Weeks, who was born in 1981. His early life was during the Liberian Civil War that began in 1980. I met his sister when I was in Liberia in 2007. She told me his story, and he's all over the internet too. The next 25 years after the beginning of the Liberian Civil War were a turbulent time of dictatorship, repeated civil wars, and eventually a peace brokered and enforced by the United Nations, culminating in the free and fair election in 2006 of Ellen Sirleaf Johnson as Liberia's president. At the age of 10, Jimmie Weeks was living with his family in a refugee camp. He almost died of cholera. He was, in fact, believed dead, and while his mother was not at his bedside, one of the health workers wrapped his body in a cloth, and they carried him to the pit where the bodies were put before being covered with earth. And his mother, discovering he wasn't in the health clinic, and that he had been taken to this pit of dead bodies, ran over there and found him and touched his heart and begged him to live. And he opened his eyes. So Jimmie, conscious of his own heart beating in his chest, awoke from his illness to realize that his life wasn't over yet, although it almost had been. So, metaphorically, he got up on his feet. He was, I remind you, 10 years old. He began volunteering in the camp's health clinic. He was often assigned to hold the babies. And that year, one of them died in his arms, and it broke his heart. This child vowed to make a difference in the lives of his country's children, somehow, to do his best despite all the reasons not to try. He was 10. By the age of 13, he'd started a group called Voice of the Future. It was a child advocacy organization that called for better conditions in the camps and help from international groups. At age 15, horrified by the number of children forced to become soldiers under the control of the warlords who then were vying for control of Liberia, he began the Children's Disarmament Campaign. He was 15. With support from UNICEF, Jimmie spoke with warlords, political and spiritual leaders, and the heads of civic groups, asking for them to agree on a deadline for the disarmament of child soldiers. Picture this: a skinny 15-year-old looking a seasoned, tough warlord in the eye and saying that it's wrong to use children as soldiers. Now, Jimmie wasn't alone. From the earliest days, he worked in community with others. This seems to have been his instinct. But each time he spoke to one of those warlords, he was identifiable. He was known. He was visibly present. He inspired people, local people, international supporters, political and spiritual leaders, and maybe even some of the warlords, maybe. That war ended in 1997, and with it the recruitment of child soldiers. But as Jimmie discovered just a year later, the Liberian military was still recruiting and training children to carry guns and fight wars. In December 1998, when he had just turned 17, Jimmie published a report that revealed the results of his investigation into child soldier recruitment. Jimmie was still a child in Liberia. The country's warlord leader was Charles Taylor. Charles Taylor, who only recently was convicted in the International Court of Crimes Against Humanity for the actions he took while he was president of Liberia. At the time, though, 1998, Taylor was in control, and people followed his orders, or else. Jimmie Weeks became the target of multiple assassination attempts. In 1999, with the help of UNICEF supporters, Jimmie was smuggled out of Liberia disguised as a member of a cultural arts dance troupe. The United States granted him political asylum. He was 17. When Jimmie first came to the United States, he founded Youth Action International, which exists today, and Jimmie continues to serve as its executive director. 17. And then Jimmie went to university and graduate school in America, and he has never stopped advocating for the health and welfare of children, including the many child soldiers around the world. Because that problem is not limited to one nation or one era. In the words of Nelson Mandela, after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are more hills to climb. And so it is with us. The journey continues. All of us are travelers. Do we live with love at the center of our lives, despite injury, despite grief, despite our seeming powerlessness? Do we get up on our feet and do our best despite the fear, despite the reasons not to try? Well, what exactly is the alternative? Do we simply give up? I ask myself, is that who I want to be, a person who gives up in the face of the world's brutality and my own powerlessness? Or do I look brutality in the face and say, don't do this? Yes, it does sound rather hopeless, I admit. But think of Jimmie Weeks. He was a child. In his heart and mind, he held on to a vision of a better world. He took small actions. One followed another. He always reached out to his community, and if the community wasn't large enough or powerful enough, he widened the circle. Jimmie prevailed because he was willing to commit. He did the next thing because it was next. He kept moving toward greater strength, and along the way he built the skills it takes to heal this aching world. By 2007, the year I visited Liberia, but after Jimmie was there again, he was world-renowned in child advocacy and humanitarian circles. That year, he won an International Golden Brick Award in the category of Global Impact for Child Advocacy. And in 2007, he was so famous and beloved, so famous worldwide, and so beloved in Liberia, that the new democratically elected government of Liberia invited him back to the country to speak at the celebration of the 160th year of Liberia's founding, naming him National Orator. This is the kid who almost died in the refugee camp and somehow decided to take whatever steps necessary to change his world. The orator designation meant that Jimmie gave a speech, and what a speech it was. He took the opportunity to talk about Liberia's proposed annual budget, which had at that moment just passed the legislature. Those legislators, many of them were the former warlords Jimmie had faced at the age of 16. Those legislators, in crafting the budget, had cut funds for children's health and education while raising their own salaries. And Jimmie pointed this out in his speech. What a persistent, resistant, pesky kid. His speech was instrumental in changing the country's budget plan. And today, Jimmie's reach is worldwide as he continues to work for better conditions for children and youth. His heart is still in that moment when, as a 10-year-old, he held a baby and felt it die in his arms. What could have been despair and nothing more became determination, commitment, and love in the heart of this child. Love, an ever-expanding, powerful, relentless love. It's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. There's that love at the center of everything. In the words of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, power without love is reckless and abusive. We have seen that it is. We have heard those with political power and no love say that the world is ruled by force and strength and power, and that's how it's always been and always will be. But it's love that builds. It's love that is the mortar between the stones that people place together as they build. Dr. King also said that justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. Justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. Justice, one of our Unitarian Universalist values. So by my reckoning, we have love, we have justice. All we need is power, am I right? And Jimmie Weeks, in his childhood powerlessness, shows us how to become powerful. One small action after another, one movement forward, and then the next. And each movement in community with others, a community that grows and learns and ultimately prevails. It's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. Weighted by grief, I evoke love. And I say to us all, maybe you're angry, but anger isn't how we prevail. Maybe a motivator, but love is the mortar. Love is the seed. Renee Good herself is a seed that is already begun inspiring us as that seed grows and flourishes in our own hearts. So, maybe you're already angry, so I can't really say don't get angry, but I can say get moving.